Welcome everyone today to our chat about packaging cybersecurity services in MSP. It can often seem like a bit of a daunting task, I know. Before we get into who we are and what we're going to go through today, just wanted to briefly touch on maybe some of the questions you might have in your own mind coming into this. You might have one, three, all more of these on mind, but a lot of the time the things that we're sort of seeing are like, okay, well, I'm getting into cybersecurity. I want to upgrade my customers. I want to sort of have different models of cybersecurity packages, whatever it may be, which leads to a whole plethora of questions like, well, how much should I charge for this? What do I need to consider when coming up with my pricing? What should I include? How should I roll this out to my clients? How do I pick the right, partners and vendors? How do I position my services, obviously in a way that is going to interest them and drive new business? Marty, as our sort of MSP expert in the room, are there one or two of these that you think that you hear the most from our partners?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hear I think almost all of these every day, right? And hopefully we'll, by the end of this webinar, we'll touch on a few of these that'll, help bring some more clarity. The one that definitely sticks out to me here is sort of that, how do I upgrade my existing customers? And it's not so much how do I upgrade my existing customers? It's like, how do I go back to my base and really let them know that, what I'm providing them today either isn't sufficient enough, or we need to upgrade them to a different level of security. So either changing pricing or just going back to them and ensuring that I'm keeping that trust while sort of leveling up their security. I think I hear a lot that a lot of MSPs sort of struggle with that conversation. So hopefully that's one that we can dig into. Amongst the slew of others here.
Yeah, that's a meaty one for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into it any further, we will just take a couple seconds so you guys know who the heck it is that you are looking at for the next little bit here. So my name is Libby Robinson. I head up product marketing here at Field Effect, which means that I live and breathe positioning, pricing, packaging, all that kind of stuff here. And I work really tightly with Marty, who Marty, I'll let you introduce yourself. I won't
very nice to meet everyone. As Libby mentioned, so my name is Marty Landry. I head up our channel and MSP routes to market here at Field Effect. Basically help sort of develop our program from the ground up. If you're a current partner on the call, we've probably spoken before. If you're a prospective partner, we probably will speak at some point as well too. But yeah, live and breathe sort of everything partner every day, and I'm sort of a conduit here to ensure that all of your needs are met, and that we're serving the MSP community the best that we can as well too.
Yeah, so you're hearing all these questions and having all these conversations on the daily, essentially.
Yep, you got it.
All right, so in terms of the areas that we're going to cover at a high level, basically sort of starting off with what does a cybersecurity solution look like? What are the elements that you should be considering therein? Looking at the different packaging models that you might choose. There's no right or wrong. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, rather, but sort of walking through some options. Marty's going to take us through some things that he's seen work really well with MSPs. Some positioning on how to actually, once you've decided what it is that you want to offer, how you bring that to your market in a way that creates interest and creates revenue. We don't have it in here, but there's in between the packaging and pricing. Obviously, there's some, packaging and positioning. We'll touch a little bit on pricing as well. Choosing a vendor / partner in your cybersecurity journey. So what are some things you ought to be looking for when you're looking at extending this offering to your clients? And then we'll go through Q&A. So I'll take a moment to sort of pause on the logistics side. If you do have questions at any time, fire them into you should have access to a Q&A panel here. Fire them in there. Marty and I will go through those at the end, unless it's like hey, Libby, we can't hear you anymore, and then we'll try to troubleshoot that. But hopefully we don't get any of those. And we will be sharing the deck and the recording for those of you that are on the call today. So we'll get that one out of the way, because that is usually one of the questions that comes in. So yes, we will share the material with you guys. So first off, when you talk about building a cybersecurity solution, the ultra simplest way that I like to talk about it is that any cybersecurity solution out there is trying to do one or more things in this bucket, right? Depending on my audience, I often use some questionable language when I describe this, but given I will not use, so Marty, hold me on it because I know it's a challenge for me. So I'm going to use nice, straightforward language in this today.
This is
Um,
recorded, so.
this is recorded, exactly. So basically there is all the things that would fall under the bucket of trying to stop bad things from happening in the first place, right? So it's that preventative, proactive side. So let's stop the bad guys, let's stop the bad stuff from happening. Then there is a bucket in the middle there that's sort of like, okay, if bad stuff does happen, what can I do to stop it in its tracks, to minimize the spread, to minimize the damage, all that sort of stuff. And then the last part is that, okay, well, if bad stuff did happen, I want to get back to business as quickly as possible. So it's that recovery. Really, at the heart of hearts, any cybersecurity solution out there is fits in one or more of these buckets, right? Like that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to stop the bad guys. We're trying to limit their damage, and then we're trying to recover if they do get in. I think we've seen a lot of this in recent times. Going, there's the boom, and then there's the left of boom where you're trying to prevent, and the right of boom where you're trying to recover. So simple enough, right? I think we're done, Marty. We can just wrap this up, and everyone understands all the cybersecurity goodness.
Yeah.
The challenge is, of course, taking those three pretty simple buckets to wrap your head around and saying, okay, well, what are all of the elements that fit into those three core parts of cybersecurity? And this is where you start to get that smorgasbord of offerings out there, right? This is alongside the NIST framework. That's sort of that it sort of forms a circular path of cybersecurity. So identify the problems, protect yourself. In order to protect yourself, you have to be detecting and responding, and then recovering, and then like continuously repeat that loop. Bit of a spoiler alert here when we're going to get into the positioning side is that we know as cybersecurity experts, and you may well know, that all of these various things, the antivirus, the multi-factor authentication, EDR, automated response, IR planning, any number of elements in here are all the things that make up a good cybersecurity solution. But if we went out and just bullet listed all of these to our customers, our customers might not understand the value of these things, right? So while we know behind this, under the surface, the value of all these things, it is our job to know our audience and to translate it into a way that's meaningful for them, so that they understand what it is that they're buying, and they understand why they need it. Marty,
yeah,
anything to add?
I think that. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I think that's a great point there. And it's really being able to, take all these sort of, words that mean a lot to us maybe, but may not mean as much to our customers, and boil them down to outcomes, which is so important. Libby, is there anything here that, you consider in today's day and age as sort of like table stakes that you need, or maybe anything that's additional? Like there's a lot on the table here. Would you consider that everything here is sort of, the core things that every MSP should be offering? Or
yeah, so you had to know that my answer was going to be, well, it depends, because it sort of does, right? So this is where, and again, we're going to get into this a little bit later, is the knowing your audience and knowing where you are, right? So the answer to what is necessary and what you need as a vendor, as an MSP in this space, really comes down to where your customers are on their cybersecurity journey, right? So if you are looking at like a total newcomer who is just trying to maybe open a retail store, and they really don't have any sense of what they should have, that's where you might want to start with something like, okay, let's say there are some that are absolutely essential, like MFA. All of us should be using MFA on a daily basis, and there's some in here like that. But maybe if you are working with a client that really doesn't even, maybe they don't know where they are on their cybersecurity journey, maybe this is where an assessment comes into place, right? So then you can sort of, well, where are you? What are your liabilities? What are your risks? All that sort of stuff. Because one of the things that we'll get into, one of the things that's super important is obviously you need to defend, but a huge part of that defense is preventative, right? Proactive. And also you can't defend and you can't protect what you can't see. So visibility is also really important in your cybersecurity solution. But really, to answer your question, as your customers build up, as you guys are building your cybersecurity maturity into your customers, at the end of the day, this is what a really holistic cybersecurity solution should look like and should encompass. You might have to make some decisions based on where your customers are to decide what, can I take them from 0 to 100, or is that going to be too much? And then are there, maybe I should just start with vulnerability detection and email analysis and EDR and cloud detection, those sorts of things, and then build up into the full suite. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Certainly in the conversations that we have from MSPs, I think the key word that you hit on there is visibility, right? And I think that is the messaging that MSPs really need to be sort of getting across and honing in, to their customers, especially as we start answering that question about, taking them from a spot of, are you protecting me today, versus, how are you going to protect me against not only today's threats, but tomorrow's threats, right? And you only are able to reduce risk. Your risk reduction is going to be based on the visibility that the tools that you're deploying are able to provide you. And if
Yeah.
you're not if you're not able to deploy some of these areas, that are covering cloud, network, and endpoint, then you're not going to have the level of visibility in those areas. And I think that is the piece that's really important to communicate outwardly, right? And if we're focusing on that visibility, as you spoke about earlier, sort of that left the boom stuff on the vulnerability management side, and we're closing up vulnerabilities before they become a problem, it's really going to make less work for the MSP in the long run as well too. So not only are you keeping your client's house in order a little bit better, but in the long run, you're sort of taking them to a place where it's going to be easier for you to be able to manage as well too, right? It's kind of like that whole, you go to the dentist, you brush your teeth, and you don't end up with a cavity, right? And so taking that in the long run, certainly I think it's that visibility piece, and the more areas where you can get it, the better.
Yeah. On that note, one of the favorite things that a dental hygienist has ever said to me was, I was asking one time if I had to floss all of my teeth, and she said, no, only the ones you want to keep. And that has always stuck with me. It's kind of true in these lines too. So that's a pretty good segue, not my terrible joke, but what you were saying, into the next is that if you're looking at all these things and you're trying to put the best offerings together for your customers, what do some packaging models look like? So I'll hand it back to you, Marty.
Awesome. Yeah. And we get asked like a ton, how should I package this? How should I go to market with cybersecurity? Whether you're an MSP that's really sort of starting out and building these packages, or you're a mature MSP. There's a couple different models that I wanted to present here that, there could be 10 different models that we could throw on this slide, but here are 4 models that we're seeing a lot from a lot of our partners that, I thought I'd sort of run through. We can talk about the pros and cons to each. And again, as Libby said off the top, there's really no right or wrong model. It's really about determining what is going to be the best fit for your MSP at this stage, in your maturity as well too, right? And depending on the types of clients that you're going out to. So the first is sort of that good, better, best, gold, silver, bronze, offering multiple tiers of progressively more comprehensive cybersecurity. The pros here is that it's a flexible model, and it's really going to allow you to be able to hit almost everyone's budgets and everyone's needs. So it allows you to adhere to a wider swath of clients. Just to sort of break it down, if it's not clear, good may be, standard sort of endpoint protection, but without the ability to really, proactively do vulnerability management, or, you might not be offering, third-party patch management in this type of offer. A better would more so cover all three buckets. So you're adding, cloud, network, and endpoint. You're really bringing in that prevent, detect, and respond across the board with a high level of protection. You're focused on third-party vulnerabilities. You're bringing more visibility in, and best, maybe a more premium level of cybersecurity. Maybe you're adding in, some log retention. Maybe you've got some compliance frameworks. So maybe best is reserved for those in compliancy and regulatory frameworks. We do still see this model offered a lot. We're seeing it, a lot of folks sort of pare down to only two models now as well too, maybe a better and best. Again, the pros being the flexibility. The cons being that you are, inadvertently introducing your customers and therefore yourselves to risk, right? So you're likely to be in a situation where someone in the good package may not have complete coverage. And in that case, I would suggest that it's very, very important that you make them aware of those risks. And there's different ways to go about it. You can simply make them aware, or you could opt to get a little bit more aggressive in signing a waiver should they be in different packages. I would say that with this model, you also want to be very prescriptive as well too, as to where you feel that someone should fit.
And actually, Marty, if I can add something to
Yeah.
the good, better, best model, just from not even from a cybersecurity model, but just if this is a good model, and a lot of MSPs do really well with this type. I will say, be careful if you are putting this type of model together inherently, and that this is now going to like pricing and packaging strategy type stuff. Oftentimes, if you have three options, then our buyer minds tend to lean towards the middle one, because we're like, well, the bottom one's probably not enough for me. The top one is probably like stuff I don't need. So I'm gonna stick in the middle. So if what you are trying to do is really drive most people to the quote unquote best one here, because that's what you think is the best offering, consider possibly having almost like an extra premium one above that you really don't expect that many people to buy, but that it makes them feel like they're not purchasing the most expensive package out there as well. It's sort of like when you buy a car, right? And you're looking at all of the packages that the sports, the premium and the ultra premium. It's like, well, I probably can't justify to my partner the ultra premium, so I'll go one down, and I'm still getting a lot of good stuff, but I haven't paid top dollar. So that's just a consideration in the back of your mind that has really nothing to do with cybersecurity, and just all about sort of the buyer mindset as they're looking at options this way. Sorry, Marty, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, that's a great example, Libby, and that's why we've seen a lot go to just two, or almost call like a third one, like almost like an enterprise, like a customer that you don't typically touch. So great add in there. And then so moving along would be, and we're seeing this one more and more as well too, is an all-in model. And this is just based on the amount of risk that is out there inherently for an MSP today. And ultimately, whether you're in a good, better, best, or you're in either one of these models, if something bad happens, ultimately the customer is going to come back to you and point the finger at you, right? So the pros with this model is it's very simple, right? You're basically offering your clients a standard level of protection. This is, in order to be a customer of ours, you need to take on this level of protection. You're being very prescriptive out to your client base and into what you see. You're being very confident about the level of protection that they need to see as well too. We've seen partners move to this model. I have one example, after a breach, right? So they're on a good, better, best model. They had a fairly large breach with one of their clients that didn't necessarily have sufficient protection. We came in and cleaned it up, and they sort of said, all right, everyone is getting field effect now. I'm going to go through a 6-month process of notifying my clients. I'm going to introduce a price increase based on XYZ. It's a fairly aggressive approach. The result for this particular MSP is that they did lose some customers. To them, maybe some of the customers that they didn't want to deal with anyways, and that's not for everyone. But ultimately, they retained, just over 90% of their customers, but the price increase that they were able to drive, they're actually able to increase their margins by, an additional 120% on top of that. So they came out on top.
And vastly reducing their own liability that they're carrying, right? So it's kind of
Exactly, right? Exactly. So the cons to this model are obvious. You're likely to lose some clients in that transition process. There's different ways that you can go about it. You can go through a step change, offer an all-in-one price to all new clients, and then offer sort of a small bump to your current clients in order to keep them on that model. But we are seeing a lot of MSPs, just based on the risk out there, sort of going to an all or nothing approach. This is our cybersecurity package, and you have to be confident in that model as well too. The next one is sort of a blend of the two, and it's sort of separating your managed services from your security add-on. This model can actually be very profitable. It keeps your managed services is sort of table stakes. It allows you to differentiate your offering with security. So when we see partners go out to base with this, typically it's sort of a mix of like a better and best on security with their base managed services. And the idea here is, you should force them, or you should, say that you have to take a security option. But it could allow you to sort of, maybe have MDR as the security add-on, and then a compliance framework maybe as a different add-on. Right. So if they're in a compliance market, or they have other services that they need, but what it allows you to do is sort of hone in and set value and set price around security that is separate from your standard managed services bundle. We have seen this be fairly profitable. It also works for an MSP that's sort of transitioning from standard managed services out to into offering more security. Again, the cons can be if you have folks that don't take your security add-on or don't take a certain package, you again open yourself up to some risk. So happy to chat about that model a little bit more with folks as well too. And the last model is fairly self-explanatory. It's sort of more of that resell model, more of that a la carte. I generally don't suggest this type of model for an MSP. Typically, one that at least is managing the solution, or an MDR, where there's going to be some vulnerability management and some additional labor. If you go forward with sort of just like a straight markup on the cost of the tooling, without factoring in things like labor and other things, you can end up underwater. But it's a great option to offer that we see a lot of MSPs offering, is sort of, once specifically with field effect, they say, hey, this is a little bit beyond, my standard EDR. I can go sell this up market in clients that I typically don't manage. So for co-managed clients, or maybe that client over there that I do some project work for, I'm going to go ahead and try to, resell this and take some margin that way. Certainly that's something that we can support as well too. The cons again with this one is you're not really selling a solution. You're not selling a comprehensive set of benefits that are going to come with support. But it does allow you to, the pros are that it's a very simple model, of course, right? You know your cost, and you know exactly what you're going to charge on top of it. And Libby, I don't know if you have anything else to add there, but that might, sort of segue nicely into how to build your costs, in your pricing.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it super, super well. I mean, you touched on sort of there may be some overlap, and there may be some, like, a bit of a Venn diagram for some of these things. So I think you covered that. You covered that really well. And I think I'll come back to some of these points on the next slide. So I'll figure out how slides move. There we go.
There we go.
I figured it out. All right. So obviously we're not here to tell you exactly what you should be charging, because you know yourselves and your business the best. But what we can help with, hopefully, through all the conversation that we've had, is what are the things that you should be considering when you're looking at coming up with your pricing, right? And it really, no matter what pricing model you go with, you really do have to have a good grasp of what your costs or expenses are, right? And I think, Marty, what we've seen is tendency to be like, okay, well, that's, I paid X much for this tool, therefore that's my cost, right? And there's so much more. It's so much more than just that. So really take that holistic view of what your costs are, which is going to include your labor costs, your tool costs. Obviously, that's an easy one to figure out. Your operational costs. Do you have, for us, for example, our cloud storage costs, like these sorts of things. And there's lots of them. So really make sure you're looking at all of those when you're looking at your costs, so that you can come up with a no surprise version of what your margins should look like. I'm gonna come back to that one because Marty, I know you have a lot to add there. So I'll get through this list a little bit, and then I'll come back and let you have at it, because I think this is one that comes up a lot. The technology trends. This is really about keeping an eye on what might be a premium tool today, for example, maybe a commodity tomorrow, right? You may have to sort of be adjusting your pricing coming up, like as those things shift. Cybersecurity, obviously, as threat actors get more and more advanced, cybersecurity solutions have to shift as well. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that. This, I was tempted to move this into as the first slide, but identify your target customer, right? So this is identify and learn about your target customer and their needs, because you're really going nowhere fast if you don't understand who it is that is interested in and buying your solutions, and what they're looking for from those solutions. Next is identifying the value. So there are a couple of, and I'm going to come back to it in a couple of bullets there on the pricing model. But regardless of your pricing model, you really need to understand from the top level, what are your costs? So you can have a sense of what your margin is, but you also have to understand what is the value to your customer. So if not purchasing this tool could potentially cost them $1 million in after breach, that sort of thing, well, then that's a high value item, right? So understanding, so you have to understand the outcomes that you're providing as well, and what is the value of those outcomes. Analyzing the competition. This is an absolutely favorite game of everybody, I think, and absolutely you need to understand who your direct competitors are. So if you are MSP A, and your potential customer is also looking at MSP B, of course, you have to understand what it is that they're doing. One thing I think that we often fail to recognize is the competitor that is the status quo or the do nothing, right? So this is where you really have to, again, going back to, it's going to be a bit of a broken record, I know, on understanding your customers, because you do have to know if they're also considering doing nothing, which is a much easier quote unquote buying decision than signing a contract, right? So when you're coming up with those differentiators, make sure you're including what happens and how you differentiate against that status quo, right? The looking at pricing model and strategy, quick 101 type stuff in case you're like, what's the difference between a pricing model and a pricing strategy? Your pricing model is things like, how are you charging for it? So it could be a cost plus model. It can be a value-based model. Cybersecurity is usually a mix of those two. Then you can get into like per user pricing, fixed pricing, hourly rate-based pricing. Whereas a pricing strategy is, now once I figured out what it is that I want to charge for this, how do I want to roll this out to market? And that becomes your pricing strategy. So do I want to get this out, get a bunch of early adopters that are going to then act as references for me and act as, case study opportunities so I can tell more people about this? That you might want to have early adopter pricing, right? So you know what your end price is going to look like, but you might want to go to market for X amount, know how many you're going to roll in, know how long you want to do that. But you might want to offer some early adopter type pricing. You might want to offer some incentives to existing customers. We all know that existing customers like to be treated with that sort of special, hey, I've stuck with you, give me a bit of incentive here. And also consider upsell opportunities, right? So when Marty was going through the packaging, you may want to have, like, let's say you go with a good, better, best. You might want to have some sort of an add-on on top of that allows you, not just at the very beginning at your initial contract signing phase, but during the lifetime of your client, be able to go back in and say, hey, you know what, we're getting along great. I love working with you guys. Did you know that we have this other, service offering that we can add in if you'd like, and you can expand that sort of, share wallet at your customer base. And then obviously, make sure you understand your positioning, because your positioning, no matter how great your offering may be, no matter how well thought out your pricing strategy and your pricing model may be, if you haven't nailed how you're going to get people convinced to go with you, it's sort of an all for naught exercise, right? So there are some, before I get to the very last point here, Marty, I'm going to throw it back to you for calculating expenses and calculating costs. I think you could probably do a whole webinar just on that one bullet, but what are some of the things that you're hearing and some of the challenges or things that people are forgetting, or, what have you?
Yeah, I think the biggest common mistake that we see MSPs making is really only considering like their tooling costs when evaluating costs, right? So you really need to factor in what is the cost going to be the cost of managing the solution. A few extra dollars or up or down on the specific tool itself could be minimal compared to the actual labor costs or the burden that it's actually putting into your business processes, right? So what are the costs of managing the solution? Triaging and responding to alerts. Are the alerts contextualized? Are they integrated? Are they walking your team through a path? That's a big thing that we're seeing. Labor cost is a huge cost, and it can certainly cut into an MSP's margins. Can also, put them in a spot where, all their most expensive or their best techs are being bogged down on certain issues instead of being freed up to work on, more project work or more revenue generating items. So, does the tool that you're using allow you to, put your L1 techs on there? Or, does it require a higher level of technician, right? And those are things that you're going to want to look at when considering how you're going to price and considering, solutions. The other one is, endpoint versus user pricing. That there's a big delta there sometimes, and it should be factored in and calculated, right? And it's not a one-to-one. Sometimes we're seeing 1.25 to 1.5 up to 2 to 1 on users to endpoint. So really, when you're looking at vendors, are they pricing by user? Are they pricing by endpoint? How does that actually figure into and factor into my cost model, as well as the actual labor to manage the solution are critical, even above the actual license cost itself.
Yeah, definitely. And your point on labor is super valid, because I know that can often be an obstacle for MSPs to start upgrading the cybersecurity offerings themselves, right? Because I think there's that fear of like, well, I don't have access to cyber analysts, nor can I afford to pay them, right? So I think we'll get into that when we're sort of talking about the things to consider when looking at various partners. But I mean, that's really key, right? Is it how can you, as an MSP, well, maybe we should have had this question on the very first slide, was like, okay, how can I offer a more advanced cybersecurity without a huge burden on my own costs, on my own team, et cetera. So
yeah,
really valid point.
There's value you can place on that too, right? Having 24/7 analysts, even if they're not your own. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get a little bit into positioning, which is, without any bias whatsoever, the most interesting part of anyone's day. So some of these we've already talked about a little bit. So I'll go through the sort of how-tos on these ones a little bit. So first one is really understanding who is your audience, right? And this is so key, because almost never does your audience understand all of the same things that you do, nor do they necessarily care about all the same things that you do, right? You also may know all the features that they need, but you'll have to translate that into things that matter to them, right? So let's say that what's a good example here? If you are choosing a barber, right? So, the barber might care that they have ultra sharp beard trimmers, and that there's a vacuum on the beard trimmer, and that there's LED lights and everything. They might care about that. You don't give a hoot, right? You want it to be fast, and you want to check yourself a little bit extra in the mirror and have your partner love it. So it's filtering that, they know that you don't care about the stuff that they care about. So they're filtering it into, they know who you are, kind of thing. So it's who is your audience? I will give a couple of tips maybe here, because I often get questions on like, okay, well, how do I get to know my audience? And the easiest answer there is talk to them. There is an art of talking to them to get that information, though. Make sure you're not just asking the questions that are going to lead to them saying something like, oh, yeah, I need an EDR or something like that, right? Because what you're trying to understand are the things that go beyond the quote unquote cybersecurity or IT needs, because you want to be able to speak to them in a language that's going to push them into a buying decision. So you need to understand the obvious, but then what are their business goals? What are some of the existing challenges beyond cybersecurity, right? What are the things that they're challenged with today, and how do they measure success? So, I have done a lot of win-loss calls. We do win-loss calls here, and getting to the how will you measure success is key, because not only to gain new clients, but to keep those clients, you have to understand how they're going to judge your solution as having helped their business, right? So if you are fortunate enough to get on a call either after you have won or lost a deal, is understand what were the things that you were using as part of your analysis. Like, what were the requirements? What were your acceptance criteria? How are you judging whether this was going to work for you, and what are you trying to achieve with this solution? So it's talking to your customers, but it's also asking the right questions. And there are literal books on this. If you wanted to do a little bit of research, go into sort of buyer persona research, and that will give you a lot of those like specific questions to ask, not only about how you access your audience, but how you gain buying insight. Because I absolutely don't buy into the like, oh, well, they watch football on Sundays and they like Bud Light or whatever. Like, fine, but that doesn't impact how they look, how they go on Monday morning, when they get to their office, if they're going to make a cybersecurity buying decision, right? So you need to really know them in terms of those drivers that they're going to use. What alternatives are they looking at? So we talked a little bit about that previously, including the status quo. But you need to be able to not just define what your solution is going to provide, but this sort of, that instead of type statement, that's going to put you above and beyond what others like you or other solutions that they're looking at. But again, that starts from knowing who your audience is. And then what are the outcomes that your solution provides? So the temptation, again, is to get into sort of that feature-based selling. So that's sort of the bullet point of things. That would be equivalent to kind of going back to that first or second slide with the table of all of the elements underneath it. And that might mean something to us, but it's very unlikely to mean something just straight up as or to your audience, right? So you've probably heard of feature selling. Then it went into benefits selling, which is still very useful. Now really moving into outcome selling, right? So that's why knowing their business goals, knowing how they're going to measure success, and you being able to speak to that, then you always have to be able to work backwards, because once you capture their interest with an outcome that resonates with them, you need those proof points, right? So you need to be able to have that line and that mapping between your features and your benefits and your outcomes. But in order to really kind of capture their interest and get their level of understanding, when you start talking about those others, is kind of working backwards from the outcome to the benefits to the features. So the best example of this, and we've all heard about this and talked about this, but so if I were to come to you and I would say, I have this device, it has hi-fi sound, it supports OGG, MP3, WMA, Wave. You can expand the memory with a TF card. It charges really fast. You'd be like, cool. And then Steve Jobs comes along, and he says 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? That is a difference between features that people can't really wrap their minds around, an outcome that got people excited. It was short, it was sweet, it was punchy, and it's the thing that people wanted, right? That I give him credit from that perspective. He really did sort of change the game to more outcome based messaging. So consider that when you're looking at your own positioning, that you're not speaking in features that make sense to you, but that might not necessarily make sense to your audience. And you might be sitting here looking at the slide going like, man, does Field Effect not know how to use how to center things on slides? No, I have an animation here. The last thing to consider as you're building this out is really, and the reason I put it here, but it's related to your packages, it's related to your pricing, and it's related to your positioning, is make sure that it's easy for your audience. And that easy is across the board. The easy is like, it's easy to understand what it is that they're buying. It's easy for them to measure whether it's working for them or not. It's easy for them to purchase. It's easy for them to renew, all these sorts of things, right? Like think about all of those little touch points, the customer touch points that you have, and how can you make each of those ones as easy and streamlined as possible. Marty, I spoke a lot. I'm sure there's some stuff that you can add in here from the MSP standpoint.
Yeah, I think we can actually go to the next slide and sort of give an example of this. And the biggest thing I want to hit on there is starting from the end, right? Starting from the end and the outcomes and working our way back to all the things. So, I see so many MSPs and it's great, right? Again, as Libby mentioned, right? We're all sort of nerds. We get excited about all these industry buzzwords. But let's not forget, it's a great industry, but this industry is a confusing place also, right? And especially confusing for folks that have never purchased a cybersecurity solution before. So, right, instead of leading with, you'll get EDR, MDR, cloud detection, I'm not going to read threat hunting, SOC, vulnerability management. We can have those things, certainly. But, why not try going in with something that's a little bit more relatable in the sense of, with our security package, we will work hand in hand with you to prevent, detect, and respond to threats across your entire organization with a complete solution that will provide 24/7 support and is built for today's threat landscape, right? Maybe touch on a piece, right? We provide peace of mind and the right visibility that's geared towards protecting against today's threats, reducing organizational risk. That was a lot. And from there, you can flow down to all the things that roll up and wrap up into that, right? I guess in terms of a punchy line, one that I've seen work really well, that our clients go in is they say, without Field Effect or without our MDR in place, I don't have the visibility I require to properly protect you against today's threats and properly reduce organizational risk. And that goes back to that comment off the start, right? Around how do you lead your clients to this place? The world changes, technology changes, industries change. And I think it's really important to impart upon them that you're only going to be as effective as the tools that you have in place. And even if they're looking at a competitive solution, it's okay to say, and the competitors that you're looking at won't have that visibility either, unless they have these things in place. So it's okay to be prescriptive. It's okay to sort of be that trusted advisor for your client, because that's where they put you in. And yeah, so we'll jump ahead here to what to look for when
I think there's some weird animation that's happening, and I think there's like some timer that was moving to the next one. So I apologize. I'm not just fat fingering
okay.
people.
I think I think we can segue in. Hopefully that point makes sense. And then now looking from sort of the partner side, and I think the biggest word here is right in that title: what to look for when evaluating a partner. They should be considered a partner, not a vendor. Those are the people you want to work with. Yes, they're going to provide cybersecurity, but what other things are you getting from them, right? And holistic coverage is important, right? Is that a specific partner that you can work with to consolidate your tech stack? It will allow you to reap savings on tooling costs, right? And drive efficiencies. But beware of marketing buzzwords. I love this industry. But sometimes I can't imagine being an MSP walking into some of these conferences as well too. Seems like everyone under the sun is offering an MDR today. What really is that? Is it actually MDR? Is it XDR? Some solutions are very much have limited maturity. Some folks are calling managed EDR, MDR now. We've seen folks that are saying, yeah, we offer cloud monitoring. Oh, well, they offer M365 monitoring now. Okay, well, what are they doing, right? Are they tying it to the endpoint? Are they looking at behavioral analysis? Are they looking at, folks who are able to download files off SharePoint? Like how mature is that cloud monitoring, and is it being all tied together? So again, just looking at back to the previous point, looking at the SKUs versus actually digging in, because unfortunately, a lot of vendors out there are guilty of sort of latching on to the latest buzzwords, and partners in their mind checking the box, right? So you really want to also understand, like, what is that vendor going to take on your behalf? What support is offered? Are the alerts delivered as standalone? Are they consolidated? Do they integrate with your tech stack? There's a ton of stuff tough to consider there, especially as you work into pricing as well too, right? So what types of margins are you going to be focused on? Is it really all in one? Are there additional hidden costs? Are there add-ons that you're going to have to add down the road? We touched on the per user versus the per device pricing. That's a really big deal as well too. Is there SKU confusion? Are you going to get in a critical situation and reach out to your vendor or your partner and find out that, hey, you don't have this package that's going to allow them to do, active response or incident response, or allow you to get on the phone with a client, right? And does their pricing, I always say, does their pricing align with the way that you bill? Right? We try to, align our pricing with the way that an MSP bills their clients. It's so much more seamless when you can align those things across the board and not have a ton of complexity in your pricing model as well too, right? Next is sort of, what type of expertise are they going to offer? Is it 24/7? It has to be 24/7 if it's cybersecurity. You need that full support. And as we mentioned earlier, you can sell that 24/7 outwardly as well too. And then finally, what are they providing? Again, as I touched off the bat, what are they providing above just cybersecurity, right? Are they going to help you sell the service? Is there marketing and sales support? It can be a really overwhelming journey if you're just starting out, or if you're just sort of migrating from endpoint protection only to an MDR platform. And you want someone that's not only going to provide effective cybersecurity, but provide you the tools, the sales and marketing resources for you to be able to actually go out and sell it as well too. And that's where that partnership, that two-way partnership, comes into play. So Libby,
Yeah.
if you have anything to add there, go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually going to add in here. We talked earlier about the value of make sure that it's easy for your audience to understand. I would add, like, understanding here as well when you yourselves are looking at partners, right? Because we talk about, you should understand what it is that you're buying. You should understand how to measure it. You should also it should also be really easy for you to use, right? So one of the saddest things that I think we see here is, as part of the incident response that we do, oftentimes we will see people come in, organizations come in, and those organizations thought they did all the right things, right? They thought they had the right tools in place, and oftentimes we'll see, oh yeah, the tool that they had did actually tell them XYZ. Like, it showed them that there was this issue, but it was in a way that didn't make sense to them. They didn't know what to do with it. So it's like, it's really important to be able to understand the tool that you're using as well, right? As Marty mentioned, like, it's kind of, you should expect your vendors to sort of take that burden off of you. So it's easy. It should be super simple and easy for you to use. It's take action when you need it to, all that kind of stuff. Because it's no good to have these tools in place if they're not actually working for you. So I just wanted to sort of add that in as a sort of a sub bullet, I think, to the holistic coverage. And then also yes, you should absolutely be looking at cybersecurity as one of the things that your cybersecurity partners should be providing, but the value of some of those other parts as well, right? So, for example, I work on the product team with the product marketing and product management. And I think I think you should expect to have some influence on the product roadmap as well, right? Like you guys as customers should expect to be able to sort of have some of that, like the have suggestions. You guys are users of the various solutions out there. So it's definitely not too much to sort of expect that you would have some kind of influence on what those products are doing that you're using. So I think that's an important aspect as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Libby. Yeah, ask the tough questions, right? And make sure that this is going to be a partner that's going to work with you. Like Libby mentioned, things like roadmap, things like actually feeling like you're part of the journey, and you're moving forward together is a huge part of this.
Yeah, and I will move us to the last slide here, I think, and then we have quite a few questions coming in actually. So we'll I'll start bringing those in after we get through this one.
Okay, awesome. And I'll keep this brief, but obviously we'd be remiss if we didn't end this webinar by talking about how we align to these strategies as well too. Some partners on here are familiar with us, some certainly aren't. But we definitely take it inside our ethos to work with our partners from a sales and marketing perspective. You will get access to a sales team. We have sales tools that we provide our partners, like a pre-sales attack surface report that's going to help show your customers about their vulnerabilities. Preliminary cybersecurity assessments. So we have free tools that we kind of combine with a sales resource as well as sales engineering resources on demos. We have access to go-to-market assets, messaging templates, a full partner portal that's ready to use with campaigns in a box, webinars in a box. We're happy to sit down one-on-one and have this type of discussion with you as well too. And again, we truly believe in complete visibility. So we believe in a solution that's not mired in hidden costs and add-ons. We offer a complete solution. It provides complete visibility, and the idea is that it's meant to be delivered in a simple format, right? So integrating with MSP tools like ConnectWise and Autotask, working into your current processes, and ultimately trying to deliver an experience where we're working together to provide the best protection for your clients as well too. So I'll just end and leave it there. Libby, I don't know if you have anything to add, but we can certainly ask some questions if you want to learn more.
No,
you can go to our partner page as well.
Yeah, I think you covered it, and Ashley, I think you answered a couple of questions in the last one, but I'll just to make totally sure. So the one, I love the idea of outcome-based messaging for our clients and prospects. Our field effect marketing materials currently available with the outcome-based messaging. So I'll take a first crack at that. You can feel free to add in, Marty. So as Marty mentioned, as a field effect partner, you have access to a whole bunch of marketing materials that are meant to sort of speak to maybe that less technology savvy and more what they're going to get out of it type thing. So there's campaigns in a box for like specific to certain industries, to certain problem sets. There's a whole bunch of marketing materials that can help you out there on the portal. And then we're always also evolving our own as well. So this is where we love working with our partners as well. So if you have specific outcomes that your particular clients are all over, that you think that that we can help with from a cybersecurity perspective, super happy to lean in there as well. So yeah, so the short answer is yes, we do. Slightly longer answer is make use of the partner portal and reach out if you think that there's anything missing, and keep an eye on the partner portal, because we do keep it up to date, and we're constantly adding things in. Marty, anything else to add there before we move on to the next?
Just real quickly, that when we onboard you as a partner, we will run through 2 tracks with your team, more of a technical track, like actually using the product, but then a sales and positioning track as well too. That definitely focuses on the outcome-based messaging. That's in addition to the partner portal stuff.
Yep. And I'm going to sort of talk about, so there's another question that came in. So the first part of the question is this a presentation available to share with us? Yes, absolutely. You'll get it. And the second one is, can you provide a common MSP stack that we should be using or we should be providing rather to our prospects and customers? So I will say that I think, Marty, that's probably best aligned, sort of getting to time here without going into it here. I think this is something that you guys tend to work with on those kickoff calls with partners so I'll let you speak to that one.
Yeah, totally, and it's certainly going to align with a lot of the items that you saw. So if we send this presentation out, and Libby's slide, I can't remember if it was slide 3 or 4, but sort of that identify, detect, and respond. It's going to certainly align with a lot of the things that are listed there. Now, obviously, holistically, we can provide this as well too. So we have a slide that we provide to our clients that lists sort of those 15 plus tools that Field Effect would include, and certainly those are, we're of the belief that, you're not doing yourself any good to protect yourself in one area and leave your windows or your doors open in another. So, sort of either you're protected or you're not. And we believe that all those core things are within that documentation. So we can send it out after.
Yeah, I think we probably have time for one, maybe two more. So one of the questions that came in kind of early, I think when you were going through the various packages, was what would you say is the split between the MSPs that you see doing the good, better, best model versus the all-in model? Is there a trend there? I know, right? I put you on the
spot. Interesting one. Yeah, so I would say that we're definitely seeing a move away from good, better, best to be a little bit more prescriptive. I think we've seen some MSPs just move to the all-in model, especially with the risk that is out there now. I think what we're finding, and I'm going to fence sit here, and that's what we're seeing mostly is a bit of fence sitting, right? So either a 2 model, a better and best, or an all-in model that sort of has a compliance add-on. So sort of that security add-on. Model is what we're seeing trending towards, but we're definitely seeing, especially after an attack or after a hit, it's just not worth it for the time that's invested for a lot of MSPs. So we are seeing a trend towards the all-in model with maybe dipping their toe with a better and best.
Yep. So I think there are. Another one that came in. Are there any contract/MSA verbiage recommendations for MSAs about security? Again, I think that's something that you guys would sort of take into consideration in those initial conversations with partners as you bring them on.
Yeah, for sure. So we can, we'll definitely flow down our terms. We would suggest that you flow them down to your clients as well too, and we can assist there as well.
Perfect. I think so. Then the other questions were sort of around some specifics of the MDR offering that we have. I think I might just for sake of time here, we'll capture those and we'll share the answers as part of the share afterwards, because probably they'd be hard to answer. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. They'd be hard to answer in the span of 25 seconds or so. So I think we can probably wrap it up there. Marty, thank you so much for sharing some of your insight. It was really interesting. Good conversation.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I just wanted to say, thanks to all of our current partners on here. Some great messages in the chat here. So really appreciate you all being on here. And for those that are, looking at Field Effect, we look forward to talking to you in the future as well too. So thanks everyone.
Definitely. Thanks everyone for attending. Have a great rest of day.